we go. So, um, let me show you. Normally, I don't soak the black-eyed peas, but here's the difference. These are the ones that are not soaked, and then here's the ones that are soaked. They're like 3 times as big.
Okay.
So I think that's partially why people eat black-eyed peas for New Year's. It's like the idea is it grows your prosperity, right? More luck.
So, as usual, I was at the grocery store getting my ingredients. I neglected to buy black-eyed peas and soak them. So, what I have, and I don't know if I should
Admit it. I mean,
no.
today we don't have to soak it. We're just cooking black-eyed peas, but
So I do have these, which are dried,
yeah,
but
that's fine.
I found this.
Oh, a can of black-eyed peas?
And I do believe they're already cooked because it
Correct. Yeah.
says they have been slow simmered, but there's seasoning to this. And what I was going to do was save the juice and lightly rinse them and put that
Well,
with.
for today, I'm cooking how I make black-eyed peas for New Year's. And basically, I grew up in the South, and what do you guys do for good luck on New Year's? I mean, we'd make black-eyed peas and then greens, and then sometimes we'd make cornbread. And the idea was, it's very interesting because all these foods were considered food that the rich people didn't want to make, didn't want to eat, right? Black-eyed peas were originally, way I understand it, food for animals. You would store them in the winter, and then you could feed them to the animals to, well, as food. And black-eyed peas, and then what was cornbread is, well, corn, also animal feed. And then the greens were all like, any type of wild greens you could get, any bitter greens, and you'd add a little vinegar to offset the bitterness. So, what were we talking earlier? Black-eyed peas are not actually peas. They're actually from the legume family, originally from Africa. And so, anyway, I like black-eyed peas because compared to other beans, they cook really, really fast. And you do have to be careful that you don't overcook them and turn them into a mush.
Unless you like mush.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could do like a mush with, and then what do you call it? Make a soup. Also in the South, traditionally, of course, you would use some kind of bone, like that people tend to throw away. Pig's feet, cow feet, knuckle bone, and that just, as a flavor. But I grew up vegetarian, so I tend to just put a lot more garlic and onion in it to enhance it, and then put some bay leaves in it and maybe a little soy sauce to give some umami. But basically, quick recipe. I just ground some fresh, this is mostly Thai basil, but a lot of, we just had winter, so and so I picked all my herbs from the garden, dried them and ground them, and so that'll be it. Speaking of eating things that are normally thrown away, this is a gourmet bottle of pickled onion scapes. Now, I've had garlic scapes, but it's just like the shoots of the garlic or the shoots of the onion, right? Isn't this an onion scape? Like,
is it looks like an onion scape.
So this right here is literally the onion was sitting there not paying attention, and it grew out of the onion, and the onion itself went rotted, right? So I did-
Usually the scape portion is the curly part, the harder curly part at the top that forms flour.
well, yeah, I think this. Oh, okay, but yeah,
so
normally, I mean, I've seen pickled garlic scapes, but they were like sticks, and you couldn't really eat them. But it flavored it really well.
Hmm.
But in this case, they minced it really fine, and it's so flavorful and tasty.
Nice.
It's, my point is, you can utilize anything that people think is stuff you would throw away. So your typical Southern New Year's good luck meal is all food that was not considered food for people. Black-eyed peas, cornbread, and wild bitter greens were all considered. So basically, all I'm doing is I'm going to fry some garlic, fry some onion, and then boil the peas. That's pretty much it. And again, barely boil them unless you like mush. Now, I grew up liking the mush because we take the mush and you then fry it as a patty. And so what today people call black bean burgers, we'd eat black-eyed pea burgers just the same way. So that's pretty much it. Any questions? I'm gonna start frying some onions and garlic.
So, yeah, I have a question. What would I be using? Should I use the dried beans?
Probably. I mean, I tend to not use the canned stuff unless I'm in an emergency in a hurry.
So my other question, sorry to interrupt, but my other question is, having the recipe or the chef's recommendations for the black-eyed peas was to remove the skin
Right.
after
So that's where she was doing a different recipe in that she's making it into a mush and then frying them. So then you don't want any texture. But the part of it is in Africa, you can buy these with the skins already removed.
as dried beans or as canned?
Dried. Yep. So, but I personally like texture. So, like, for example, my garlic, instead of mincing it, I do big chunks like that. And it's really easy with black-eyed peas to overcook the peas and have no texture in it. So one way to do it is your onions, your garlic. If you like bell peppers, you put some bell peppers, celery, and all that's for texture. But I mean, if you've ever had, what is it, pea soup, like green pea soup, it's like just a mush.
Yeah.
This right here can become like that, like, white or brown mush. But you can also really pay attention and have all the beans have the full bean shape.
One, I didn't really look at the use by date. These might be older beans, which my experience have been with my chickpeas. They can be pretty tough.
Oh, chickpeas are always tough. I've never come across black-eyed peas that, I don't know, take a long time to cook. Even though they are a bean, I think they call them the peas because they are so soft.
So the instructions on the dried bean package says there is a quick soak method. Am I even skipping that? Because it says
I've never soaked them for making boiled beans. I've just never done that at all. Now, you probably want to rinse them if they're dried because there might be some dirt on it and stuff. But otherwise, I've
Okay.
never.
Okay, so I'm gonna get,
Other type of beans that you have to soak. I've never felt like you have to soak black-eyed peas. But I also think that we do tend to have, in the US, we don't tend to eat, many beans. So beans tend to be like really, really old on the shelves. I remember the first time I had fresh beans in Mexico. Well, fresh in that they were harvested and dried pinto beans. Like a couple months before, I was like, holy moly. I was so used to the beans in the store that, 4 or 5 years old. And I don't feel like black-eyed peas have tons of flavor. They have, they're light on the flavor, but they definitely have a unique flavor compared to other beans. Wait, I forgot. I'm gonna mix this into 2 different pans because I'm not gonna fit it all in this pan. So I'm gonna fry some of this garlic and then put it in a cooker. So I do feel like a lot of people only eat black-eyed peas for like New Year's, or if you go to like a soul food dinner. But I don't know. Black-eyed peas and lentils are 2 types of proteins that cook so fast that I've always absolutely loved making them. I actually looked up a little history of eating beans at New Year's, and a lot of people historically started not liking people who ate beans. Like, here's a little thing. It says, beans were linked with rowdiness that surrounds the year's beginning and end. And there's an old European bias against beans. And and ancient Romans believed that beans contained the souls of the dead, mainly because beans were considered a poor people's food. And in the US that extended because at least with black-eyed peas, it was actually animal feed. So, but the nice thing about black-eyed peas is they store dry for a long time. And I looked up all the different reasons why black-eyed peas could be considered good luck. And one of the stories says that when they eliminated slavery, that it was a time of the year that there wasn't much abundance. And so all the parties happen to be, people tend to eat black-eyed peas, cornbread, and greens because that was what was available in the winter. And even further back, black-eyed peas are considered something you ate on Jewish New Year, which of course is a different time of the year because they have, what do you call it, a lunar calendar, right? Rosh Hashanah. Popular Southern expression is eat poor on New Year's and eat rich for the rest of the year. But yeah, locally, a group of hikers has a New Year's party every year where we do a potluck, a shared pot of soup. You ever heard of stone soup where everybody brings a little something and put it in a pot? And then go for a hike. And usually New Year's Day is just absolutely nasty. So it's at one of the parks and they have like a stone picnic area with a giant fireplace. So
So I can fry this in the same pot that the beans will go in.
yep.
Okay.
So what I like to do is, I've been doing this for years. On Sundays, I'll cook a big pot of something and I won't put much flavor in it. And that's like my meal prep for the week. I'll do a big pot of beans, a big pot of lentils, a big pot of rice. And then each meal I'll cook a little something that has a different flavor to go on it or with it. So, um, now you do have to remember if you use dry black-eyed peas, they do increase in size 3 or 4 times. In this case, I had been soaking these for a different recipe, but they don't have to be soaked. And again, once they're cooked, you can make them into fried fritters. I like as a base for a soup. You can just put any type of savory herbs in it. Again, I tend to be light on the flavors when I cook. This, oh man, this smells so good. This is freshly ground, mostly Thai basil. I'm gonna make this one strong because I am hungry. And then I like putting some hot pepper in it. Or Cajun seasoning. I mean, because I feel like the beans themselves don't have a super strong flavor. This is my own Cajun seasoning. It's a sun-dried tomato, dried mushroom base. Pretty much a soup. So, and then in this case, this is dried ancho peppers. I'm gonna give some savory flavor to it. But
Does your ancho peppers have heat? Are they picante?
they do, yeah. But not, it's more of a, it's mostly like a smoky flavor. That, but
And how cooked down are we doing the onions?
not too much, because it'll cook when you're cooking it. What I like tend to do is make it crunchy. With my garlic, I like to toast my garlic, and so then it won't dissolve when I'm cooking it. You know, so it actually holds the texture. And again, traditionally in the South, they'll put some type of meat, usually, you know, a piece of meat that you would normally throw away, and it just has a flavor. The best, of course, is smoked meat.
Yeah, like a ham hock.
You know, a ham hock, or if you smoke the turkey, you put a turkey leg in there,
Oh,
or
brilliant.
a pig's foot, or just the idea is you're adding a little bit of I mean, you could even just cut up bacon and put it in there. The idea is you're getting a little oil and a little smoky flavor. And so you can do that if you're vegetarian, just add, well, oil. Excuse me, that good thing I turned away. That ancho is really strong. You can just add a little liquid smoke.
Yeah.
But you can also create liquid smoke. All liquid smoke is charred wood. You can just char the garlic. So I like over roast the garlic first. And then add the onions, because the onions sweat out the water, and so they're a lot harder to char.
So because I like a really strong garlic flavor, I
Yeah.
sauteed the onions for a little bit, and I just now added the garlic because I sometimes don't want the garlic to cook as much as the onions, but I have been known to add fresh garlic towards the end of something just so it, you know, it'll have the cooked garlic flavor and the fresh garlic flavor.
So normally when I make a big pot like this, I put very little flavors, and then as I eat it, each bowl of black eyed peas will just be the bottom, and then I cook something and put on top.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Fresh vegetables, meat, a little bit of soup, whatever. And so it's just, this is like, you know, my filler. But let's see if I can get these straightened out. Pull this one up. But that's pretty much it.
So how much water are you adding?
It matters how soupy you want it. I tend to like it really soupy,
Yeah.
but and you can add vegetable broth if you want. Again, I tend to not do that because, again, when I'm cooking it later, when I add flavors to it later, I'll make a little broth. I'll make so I don't infuse the flavor as much into it. And then Usually it takes about 30 minutes at a low simmer to make it. Now, if you did soak it for a little while, of course it's going to cook a lot quicker. But
So I did decide to do a real minimal, quick soak. So I brought them to a boil. I put the lid on it and I set the timer for about 20 minutes and then I'll rinse it and start
Yep.
with that. My onions and pepper, or not pepper, my onions and garlic are kind of sweating real low. And then I just added salt, pepper, and a bay leaf for
perfect.
flavor.
Yep. And then, well, if you like it spicy, if you have a fresh jalapeno, throw in a jalapeno, because that's the thing about jalapenos. When it cooks, it really loses that spiciness a lot. And so it becomes a flavor instead of just a spice. And versus fresh jalapenos, of course, are a little bit stronger. And then, you know, you can serve it. If you make it watery, you can then serve it over rice with a slice of cornbread. If you cook them where there's not much liquid, then it's just, you know, regular beans. Here, I'm going to turn this down. It started simmering now. So now I just put it at a really low simmer and set the timer. I'm going to set the timer for, because these got soaked, I'm only going to do 15 minutes. Oops.
And then you would taste and then test it to see if it's done.
Yeah, it's just the texture. It's really your preferred texture, because these cook really fast compared to other beans. So you do want to make sure you cook it less.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's smelling really good in here, but anytime I saute garlics and onion, it's just a happy smell.
And I don't tend to like bell pepper,
I
but
didn't have any bell pepper.
very commonly it's you know, garlic, onion, celery for texture, bell pepper, and then Cajun seasoning or a jalapeno for spice, and then, you know, a bone for oil and for
Flavor.
smoky flavor. And I do it like, if you look at any recipe out there, they usually do like you do, add the garlic. They'll fry it and then they'll just add the garlic right at the end.
Yeah.
I do the exact opposite. I'll toss the garlic in the pan and char it so that it has a really good texture and it retains that big chunk. I personally like the chunk of like roasted garlic. So I'm eating the beans and oh blam, there's a chunk of garlic versus garlic infused into the flavor. So you can do both. I just tend the typical way is garlic is expensive, so they'll mince it and they'll put it right at the end so it'll retain its poignant flavor. I happen to have a really awesome local farmer that grows these elephant garlics, and so I can get a lot of, this is one piece of garlic, and so it's really easy to chop, and I chop it chunky because it's really flavorful. So it's, you know, preference that you want.
And I do sort of live in the fear of accidentally burning the garlic, which is the most god-awful flavor that totally ruins whatever you're cooking and means you got to start from scratch. So there's a fine line between roasted and lightly browned or even moderately browned than scorched or burnt, which is awful.
Right.
So
I would disagree. I have scorched it, and then that's where, you know, I treat it as it's that smoky flavor. And
it gets that real bitter. It's not.
Oh, if it gets to the bitter point, no.
Yeah.
But yeah. But and so that's pretty much it. Anybody else have any questions? Now it's just gonna slow cook. And then, served. And I do realize that some parts of the world it is harder to find black-eyed peas, but I still live at the edge of the South, and we still have dried and canned black-eyed peas are available in my area. So
Yeah, the only black-eyed peas in a can I was able to find are seasoned. So
right, and
And
that
oh.
usually means with lard usually.
The ingredients on this are black-eyed peas, water, monosodium glutamate, salt, dehydrated onion, sugar, spices, rendered bacon fat, natural hickory smoke flavor.
You got the one where they put the bacon fat in it, so
Yep.
which is sounds fancier than lard, but
It's called real Southern style.
there you go. But and then served with bitter greens. I mean, wild greens in the South, even in the middle of winter, you can go out and pick wild greens. Or at the store, collard greens, mustard greens.
Oh, I just received a big, huge tub of frozen broccoli greens. Is that something I would just throw in to
No,
the?
I mean, typically they do separate dishes because, the bitterness of some of those greens are too much for some people, so they'll do a little bit. But you can offset the bitterness by putting a little vinegar in. So, yep. And then cornbread for gold.
Nice.
And it's very interesting how similar the Southern tradition and the Jewish tradition is, except, of course, the pork. It was in the South, it was what was readily available, and pork would eat, and pigs would eat anything. So there was an overabundance of pork, and so that is utilized because it's phenomenal to me now what is considered gourmet food, like 100 years ago or even 50 years ago, was poor people's food. It was like all the stuff that the rich people threw out, poor people took and made it, phenomenal tasting, and now it's considered gourmet because guess what? It's hard to find that stuff. So, all right. Any last questions? Well, I guess here, let me open the pan, show you the pan real quick before we wrap up. If you can see it, it's just slow simmering. Like the whole place is, and you can see the liquids turning really brown from that ancho. So that powdered ancho really infused it, gets it a deep smoky flavor. Because I grew up vegetarian, I'm used to like different smoky flavors not being meat. And so most people, their default is smoky bacon. And so I like looking at all the different other ways of creating smoky flavor. And that's about it. So good luck. Lots of good luck.
Yay.
All right. Suzanne, did you want to say anything before I wrap up? Otherwise, keep cooking.
I'm just cooking.
I
I started late because I was late.
So I was thinking for the smoke flavor, I could use smoked paprika.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Which is not spicy, but it has that flavor.
Yeah, just, you just need a little bit. I put probably a big tablespoon in each one of my pots. I mean, a little overdid it, but
Hmm.
yep. Again, it's whether you were making the black eyed peas as a base for other stuff or as a main course. And normally I make it as a base for other stuff, but for New Year's pot, you always make it as the main course. So, all right. Thank you, everybody.
Okay.